you prefer to not be on camera, feel free to turn your camera off. If you would like your face on camera, that's great too. And then we just ask if you can please mute yourselves. This helps with us be able to ensure that everybody can hear, as well as the flow of the presentation. And we also have an option for those of you who don't use Zoom, which we've all become professional Zoomers lately. We do have the option in the chat. And so what I would like for you guys to do is, if possible, you can put your name in the chat. And this is just for us to be able to have attendance and to ensure that you guys receive the material from our presentation. As well as, if you have any questions, you can put those questions in the chat, and we've allowed for time at the end to address them. Or if there's certain topics or things we bring up that you want a little bit more clarification, feel free to put that in the chat as well. And so I will introduce myself first, and then Ms. Martinez. So I am Brittany Power, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am one of our district mental health counselors here. I primarily work with Ruth Musser Middle School, Coyote Canyon, and Doña Merced.
Good evening, and I am Miss Martinez. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have been with the district since 2014, and I work with Valley Vista, Bear Gulch, Central Elementary, and Cucamonga Middle School.
And then also for you guys, if you are wanting to view the presentation along with the PowerPoint side by side, there is an option if you're using your computer or tablet where you can look at view, and you can pick that as well. So sometimes people want to be able to see who's talking along with the slideshow. If you'd prefer just to see the slideshow, it gives you that option as well. Okay, so tonight what we're going to be talking about is mental health. It's never too early to break the stigma. And we will be talking about the why we do this. Why is it important for our elementary students, our middle school students, to understand the issues related with mental health, as well as the warning signs. And as we have built this presentation, we do begin showing statistics and a little bit more background on why is it becoming such a concern at such an early age. And I do want to point out, with the presentations that are being done for our students, for our K-6, this is a new curriculum that will be implemented starting next week in the teachers' classrooms based on when they decide to do it. And in no part of those presentations do we ever mention the word suicide. We were very conscious when we looked for programs to make sure that they were getting social, emotional learning, but also realizing that they're very young and suicide is a scary word. Now, our 7th and 8th graders, they do hear that word, and it is important to say those words to those students because of their age. And so the way this presentation will go is we will start with the why, and then we will show you briefly a little bit of the lessons that our kids will get with the program for our elementary. And like I said, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. If you do not want your camera on, feel free to turn it off, and then just keep yourselves muted. And here we go.
So to get started, I just wanted us to begin with a breathing exercise, just to kind of loosen ourselves up and allow for us to kind of de-stress a little bit. It's been, I'm sure, a long day for all of us, and some of us have been in Zooms all day. So I want us to kind of just get our blood flow, get ready to kind of learn. It's 6 o'clock. So we're going to spend some time together. So just start to kind of shake your hands, kind of twirl your feet a little bit. Now move your shoulders, push forward and stretch forward, open and stretch to the side, reach up, bring your arms down, take a deep breath. All right, So we're going to get started with understanding the background of where the K-6 law came from.
Okay, so the law AB 1767, this is a new law that was added, well, not necessarily new law, but the K-6 was added to the previous school suicide prevention law. And that was that grades K-6 need to have the age appropriate suicide prevention education. And the districts were required to implement this by this school year. And so myself and Miss Martinez, we've been working on this since last June because we knew it was coming, and we really wanted to make sure that we took the time to recognize the most important topics as well as the age appropriate topic. And so although the word suicide is very scary to talk about, statistics show the more you have these conversations, it breaks that stigma. And the hope is that those individuals who may be feeling a certain way will reach out because they realize it's not just me feeling this way. And so suicide is a scary word, like we'll say the whole night, and it doesn't get easier each year, but it does become a bigger health concern. Suicide is among the leading causes of death in the United States. And we will go through, there's going to be a chart that will show you that throughout all different ages, it affects all ages. It does not discriminate. And we are noticing the younger kids are experiencing those feelings, and they're experiencing depression or other mental illness. And early intervention is really powerful and super important.
So these statistics are from 2018. They are from the CDC, and I obtained them from the National Institute of Mental Health. And these are death statistics that show that at that time, the leading cause of death, second leading cause of death between ages 10 and 34 is suicide. So that is saying that more people were dying by suicide than by other means other than unintentional injury. So the reason why it's important to be aware is that that's what really led to the laws being put into place, is realizing that this has been an underlying current and pandemic that's actually been happening in the mental health world. It's not talked about enough, and that our current medical pandemic that we're going through with the coronavirus has really brought it to light to the extent. We won't know the numbers that are occurring as of yet for this this past year of the impact of suicide, but we are aware that the numbers are growing. So this is a little bit of the why where these laws started to be made at our state level to ensure that our young people understand what there is available to them to be able to help prevent, help cope, and know what to do if these feelings are starting to grow within them.
And so mental health issues impact our students. And when we think of public education or just any curriculum with education, our students are amongst a lot of different backgrounds, different cultures. And so not only are they impacted by potentially their own mental health problems, they also are around people that could have their own mental health issues, close friends that may be struggling. They may also have friends whose families are dealing with mental health illness. And so when we were thinking about how to educate our students, we definitely keep that in mind, that the chances of somebody coming in contact with another person who may be struggling with mental health is very high in the school setting. And so in terms of mental health awareness, it has shown that it has saved lives. It has also helped to lower that stigma where people feel like we can't talk about this. It's not something we talk about. And putting it in our programs can take a variety of forms. So when we came up with the mental health program we decided was most appropriate for our students, other districts may have other preferences on what they want to take. But what's important is that they're included in the schools in some form. So with us, with our law, the K-6, it had to be implemented by the end of this school year. By increasing awareness of mental health, it helps to increase the knowledge of mental health illness in general. And with more knowledge, there's less stigma. So what this means is that if students have or suspect someone else having some sort of issue with mental health, they're going to feel more willing to talk to someone because they realize it's not just them. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. It doesn't mean that they're weak. It means that it's okay to not be okay, but how can I help you, or who can you find to help you to feel better?
So we're going to show you a short snippet of PSA that's actually available on YouTube. It is called Almost 13, Hayden's Story. We're not going to show you the whole story or any of the content related to Hayden himself, but we're going to show you a snippet in which a psychologist speaks about being a suicidologist and understanding the importance of the education of mental health disorders and understanding suicide.
We've had 2 5-year-olds in our clinic who were suicidal. So my experience with suicide has been with children as young as 5. It is unimaginable to think of a child killing themselves. I think parents cannot imagine it. And so that's probably one of the reasons a lot of parents don't want to talk to their children about suicide, because they can't even imagine their child being exposed to it or even themselves having that kind of impulse. Young people, tend to not have the kind of resources that adults do, whether it's internal or external. They don't have the life experience that they'll make it through a breakup or having disappointed somebody. And we don't know what happened with Hayden exactly, but I think it's interesting that he was so scared of disappointing his dad and disappointing his family that he did something to escape from that situation. We have to have those difficult conversations and do it a safe way. Not talking about explicit means, but talking about just the idea of suicide. And if things got so bad that you'd want to kill yourself or you'd think about harming yourself, what could we do in that moment? I would want to know. I think letting them know that no matter what happens, you would never want them to harm themselves, and that it will be okay. We will figure it out. But in that moment, what can you do? Come and get mommy and daddy. You reach out to a trusted adult. Do something to distract, to delay, to soothe yourself in that moment until you can get somebody to come in and kind of help you with that situation.
And the research that's slowly trickling in for the 2020 year, it is showing that the impact of the pandemic is increasing ER visits, at least from what it was about mid-March through mid-June, that people ages basically 5 to 11 and adolescents 12 to 17 showed increases of ER visits for mental health reasons. So we are definitely seeing an increase in that sense. And as far as what the psychologist mentioned with assessing someone as young as 5, I myself have, as I mentioned, was in the district since 2014. I worked in outpatient before that. And I can speak to just the time I've been in our district. I have done lethality assessments on a child as young as 5 years old. And that's a kinder student. So it does happen in our community. It does happen at all ages because everyone's story, everyone's life is so different, and everyone's own biology is also different. So that's part of why we need this education to help kids understand what to do. Even in situations where someone might think, oh, but I don't think they understand what they're saying. They may not understand the words or that death is permanent, but they do understand that death means no more. It stops. And so in that sense, there's something that this child wants to stop. And that's really what we're trying to help them communicate in a different way, and also getting the resources and support so that whatever it is that they want to stop, they get help for that.
And so the program that we decided to roll out this year, it's pronounced Little Aevidum, and we have a little sample of how to pronounce it. And this program was originally out of a high school, and then they made it to provide that elementary age student the foundational knowledge to build social emotional skills. I know when we spent our time in the summer really researching different programs, there really wasn't a whole lot out there that was related to our elementary kiddos. And because it's such a new law, there was a lot of concern about what is appropriate for them. And this program, it teaches several concepts to support social emotional learning. I know myself and Miss Martinez, when we were going through it, I mean, years ago when I was in elementary school, we never had these conversations. And I think it would have been very beneficial to have them. But it's, of course, even more beneficial now because things are just very different. Kids are exposed to a lot more. It's harder, I think, as a parent to be able to kind of block different things that they're exposed to with the media, on TV, social media. Obviously, there's great things about it, but we've also seen the negatives, and the negatives really impact our kids' social emotional concerns and their mental health. And with this program, the grade levels are broken up into K through 2 and 3 to 6. So it's very mindful of what is appropriate for a kindergartner versus a sixth grader. And then within each lesson, there's 6 lessons total. So the teachers, we pre-recorded every lesson and guided the teacher, the classroom, what they needed to do. For example, if we tell them to pause, they can pause and get whatever worksheets provided. So we really tried to do everything we could to help support the social emotional learning in the classroom. And as we've mentioned before, the word suicide is never used in any of the content for our K through 6. However, if you have any students that are in 7th or 8th grade, that is used in that level. It's very important that we use it for that level because their maturity level and the age they're at, it does happen. And we want to break that stigma that it's okay to talk about suicide, and let's not be scared to say the word. And so there is a difference between the two, but we definitely want to emphasize for anyone that has an elementary student, we are not teaching a kindergartner the scary word. We're teaching them how to notice things within themselves, who can they turn to, and notice if they're concerned for a friend and how can they help people. So really emphasizing that early intervention. And then what is learned with Little Aevidum? The main concept for this program is having someone's back. That's the motto from the curriculum. And what that is being a support to others and knowing you are cared for and supported, understanding your emotions and being able to recognize emotions in others, being able to identify coping skills that you can deal with challenges you're faced. So giving the kids examples on different things you can do to help yourself feel better or help others. Building perspective taking, so being able to walk in someone else's shoes and understanding that we all go through different things. A huge emphasis on showing compassion and kindness, and then emphasizing how can you get help from someone who is a trusted adult on campus. What can you do if you're feeling not okay? And so when we look at the concept of suicide, like we said, in our 7th and 8th grade suicide prevention program, we openly talk about that. We talk about suicide and self-harm behaviors. And then in our K through 6, we do not use that language. It's more about social emotional growth and how can you help each other and how can you help yourself. Our focus with the K through 6th grade students is to learn the skills mentioned, social emotional learning, and appropriate help seeking behaviors when their feelings become too big. I know when the law came out with our 7th and 8th graders, there was a lot of interpretation with the law, and the law was written to advise districts to consider teaching the students, but to obviously teach your staff about suicide prevention. And so we also provided our staff suicide prevention training. We went farther because we felt that if we're telling our staff the signs of suicide and what to do if your kids come to you with those scary conversations, we need to teach our students as well. And so we implemented the program to include educating our students. And with the high chance, the high factors that come with suicide, we're noticing the increases. It's really been a huge benefit to teaching our students and educating our staff as well, so that everybody can be there for each other and know what to do should someone not feel 100%.
So today we're going to highlight a couple of the lessons from each grade level. We're going to watch lesson 1, which both grade levels have the same. And then I believe it's like lesson 3 for K2 and then lesson 4, I believe, for 3-6. These again are going to be part of the classroom experience. So each school site will have their own schedule and when they will roll these out, depending on their schedule and other site needs. But it'll happen within the classroom setting. And as Ms. Power already mentioned, we pre-recorded them. So the teacher essentially will just be guiding discussions about some of the activities we encourage them to do, or pictures that we have them see. So let's get started with lesson 1. Hello. For the next few weeks, we'll be working on a new program called Little Aevidum. I've got your back. This is presented by Brittany Power and Viviana Martinez, your mental health therapist, in collaboration with your classroom teacher. What I need you to do right now is to have a piece of paper large enough that will fit your whole handprint and something to write with, like a pencil, colored pencil, crayon, or marker. You will need these later in the presentation. So go ahead and push pause while you get your supplies ready.
Okay, so throughout the next few weeks, you guys are going to get familiar with the term, I've got your back. So as we talk about this term and as you learn things throughout our presentation, I want you to think about what this phrase might mean. So when we say I've got your back, think about what it might mean. And then I also want you to think about, what does it feel to be 100%? And what might it feel to be 0%? So feeling 100%. So if we look at these two examples of pictures, if you look at the picture with all the kids, their thumbs up, they're smiling, they're hugging each other, they look pretty happy right now. So I would guess they're feeling pretty good, feeling 100%. And then you look over at the woman with the strong arms behind her, and she is feeling strong. So maybe she doesn't have those real buff arms on the outside, but she's super strong on the inside. So you can see that both of these pictures are showing, we could guess that they're both feeling 100%. Now, how can you tell if someone isn't feeling 100%? So when we look at these pictures, you can see some examples of what someone may be going through that's not feeling their best that day. So we see the girl with the tears in her eyes. You see the girl with the yellow shirt, and she kind of looks like she's mad. And then you see the boy with his hand on his head, and he looks pretty down. So some things to think about when you're worried about yourself or your friends is, are they being quieter than normal? You may see them crying. So like the girl, you may see some actual tears. They may even be angry, like the little girl with the pigtails and the yellow shirt, or maybe sad like the boy, or maybe he's acting worried. In class, you may see your friend having their head down for a good chunk of their day. And another one that's really important is when you think about you or your friends, if they're not acting like themselves. So maybe you and your friend always go on the swings and they don't want to do that anymore and they just want to be alone and they're sitting alone. Or maybe you guys always get excited to play handball and they don't want to do that anymore. So I would definitely pay attention to things like this to help your friends or help yourself.
Who can help when you or someone you know is feeling sad or mad or less than 100%? Now we're going to do our activity. We're going to do a filler 5. I need you to take that sheet of paper that I asked you to get, something like this, and you're going to trace your hand by putting your hand on the paper, and you're going to trace it with your writing tool. After you finish tracing your hand, I want you to think of 5 people you could turn to if you or a friend are feeling sad, mad, or aren't feeling 100%. You're going to fill in the names of the 5 people that could help by writing one name on each of the fingers on your hand. Be sure to include at least 2 people that are your age. And if you don't know how to spell someone's name, it's okay. You can just use a letter. On the palm of the hand, that's this part, write your name. Carefully cut out your hand. Now let's look at your handprint. There are so many people who value and care about you. This is my handprint, and the people I can turn to are Miss Power, my best friend Jody, my cousin Sarah, my brother Arturo, and my mom and dad. So look at your handprints and think about it. And if you want to discuss it in class, ask your teacher. We enjoyed spending our day with you today. We look forward to our next lesson. Bye.
Bye.
So as you can see, lesson 1 is a very general lesson where we're just kind of introducing the concept of feelings and also identifying the people that they could consider helpful to them and supportive. What's important with this is that even this activity could be used because when we do a lethality screening, what we often ask is, who are the social supports that someone has? And so we could refer back to the lesson of like, oh, do you remember doing that exercise with the handprint? Who were the people that you wrote? Because sometimes in the middle of crisis, people forget who are their social support. But if I direct them to the activity they've done before, they might be able to remember. And then those are names that we could then curate and put into a plan that could help be a support to that student, whether they're in a suicidal crisis or just a general emotional crisis. So now here's our K2 lesson 3, and this is on perspective. Hello, I am Miss Martinez, the mental health counselor.
And I'm Brittany Power, the other mental health counselor.
Today we're doing lesson 3 of Little Aevidum. I've got your back. We're going to start with a review. In lesson 1, we learned about Aevidum, I've got your back, and what it means to feel 100%. In lesson 2, we really learned more about those 100% feelings and what it means to feel less than 100%, to be worried, sad, frustrated, lonely, and scared. We also learned an amazing coping skill. It's called deep breathing. And so we're going to practice it now. We're going to take a deep breath in for 5 seconds, and then we're going to exhale for 5 seconds. Here we go. Breathe in and out. In and out. Now I want you to try it with my count. Ready? Breathe in. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Very good. Now we're going to talk about perspective. Learning how to change the way we see things in others and in ourselves. So, question. Is this glass half full or half empty? You could take a pause right now, teacher, and you can discuss as a class. What do you think? Maybe take a vote. I would see it as half full, but that's my perspective. Another person might easily say it's half empty because look at all this space. And then we could even have a third person that says it's at the halfway, which might mean a whole other different thing. So as you can see, it really depends on how you see things. Perspective is how you view the world. And we can change our view by listening to others and by trying new things. We're going to watch a great video about Pete the cat and his magic sunglasses.
Pete the cat did not feel happy. Pete had never, ever been grumpy before. Pete had the blue cat blues. Then, as if things were not bad enough, along came Grumpy Toad. Grumpy Toad was never happy. He always wore a frown. But Grumpy Toad was not grumpy today. He said, "These cool blue magic sunglasses make the blues go away. They help you see things in a whole new way." Pete put on the cool blue magic sunglasses. He looked all around. Right on. The birds are singing. The sky is bright. The sun is shining. I'm feeling all right. Pete thanked Grumpy Toad for the cool blue magic sunglasses. He went on his way, and soon he saw Squirrel. Squirrel did not look happy. Pete said, "What's wrong, Squirrel?" "I'm so mad. Nothing is going my way. I only found one acorn today." Pete said, "Try these cool blue magic sunglasses. They help you see things in a whole new way." Squirrel put on the cool blue magic sunglasses and looked all around. Awesome! The birds are singing. The sky is bright. The sun is shining. I'm feeling all right. Pete said goodbye to Squirrel and continued on his way. Soon he saw his friend Turtle. Turtle did not look happy. "What's wrong, Turtle?" Pete asked. "I'm so frustrated. Nothing is going my way. I am all upside down today." Pete said, "Try these cool blue magic sunglasses. They help you see things in a whole new way." Turtle put on the cool blue magic sunglasses and looked all around. Far out! The birds are singing. The sky is bright. The sun is shining. I'm feeling all right. Pete kept rolling along until he saw Alligator. Alligator did not look happy. "What's wrong, Alligator?" Pete asked. "I'm so sad. Nothing is going my way. No one wants to play with me today." Pete said, Try these cool blue magic sunglasses. They help you see things in a whole new way. Alligator put on the cool blue magic sunglasses and looked all around. Rockin'! The birds are singing. The sky is bright. The sun is shining. I'm feeling all right. Pete was rolling along and feeling all right when suddenly he fell back. The cool blue magic sunglasses went crack. Uh-oh! Pete didn't know what to do without those sunglasses. Just then, Pete looked up at the tree. Wise old owl said, "Pete, you don't need magic sunglasses to see things in a new way. Just remember to look for the good in every day." Pete looked around without his sunglasses. Too cool! The birds are singing. The sky is bright. The sun is shining. We're feeling all right.
Well, I hope that you are all feeling all right after getting to hear that story of Pete and his magic sunglasses. So the question is, what are your magic sunglasses? What are some things you can do to see things differently? Just like Pete, we can see things in a positive way. It's really easy. All you have to do is just look around. Pete noticed that the sun was shining, that the birds were singing, and that he had his friends all around him. There's a lot of positive that was around him, but if he only sees the negative, then he would be missing out on all the great things that were around him. So what we want to focus on is what's called strengths and interests. Strengths are things you're good at, and interests are things you enjoy. So, for example, if you like to sing or dance, or maybe you are a really awesome pitcher or catcher for baseball, or an amazing three-point shot, you have a strength of being a basketball player. There's also the interests, things that you enjoy. Some people may be really great at something, but maybe it's not their favorite thing to do, because maybe their favorite thing to do is to draw or to create stories, or even some people like to read and do other kinds of things. So interests and strengths are things that we could focus on as things that are positives in our life. Your strength sunglasses. What I need you to do right now is to draw or write 3 things you are good at on one lens of the sunglasses, and draw or write 3 things you enjoy on the other lens of the sunglasses. So using the sunglasses handout that your teacher provided you, I want you to do that. Write your strengths and write your interest. Go ahead and pause right now. I am glad that you guys got to see all the wonderful things that you and your classmates are both good at and things that you enjoy. I wonder if you had things in common. I know when I was in school, I had a lot of things in common with different people around me because they were my friends. And sometimes my friends and I all like the same things. Or we had different strengths. One of my best friends is an opera singer. And I also enjoy and had an interest in singing, but it was not my strength, but it was hers. And I was very happy for her. Your magic sunglasses. The next time you have a bad day, I want you to think about your own magic sunglasses and do the things you enjoy and are good at. So don't forget, put your magic sunglasses on whenever you need. That's the end of our presentation. I really appreciate your time today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.
And now we're going to view the 3-6 lesson on empathy.
Okay, so welcome back to Little Aevidum. I've got your back. I'm Miss Power, the mental health counselor, and today we are going to be talking about lesson 3, empathy. And you'll notice that this is part 1. And so our next lesson after this is going to continue with this conversation. So there will be a part 3. So we're going to do some review before we get started. So if you remember in lesson 1, we learned about what it means to when we say, I have your back. And so when we look at that, we remember what the motto is for Aevidum. And having your back means being there for your friend, being there for someone who might need you, and then someone else maybe having your back. And then if you remember, we also talked about in lesson 1, the 5-finger activity, where you were able to name 5 different people that you could turn to if you were needing something. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be where you're having a hard day. It could be something exciting as well. So always important to have people you can turn to for the good and the bad, and be able to be that for someone as well. And then lesson 2, we talked about emotions and remembering who can you turn to on campus. So we talked about principals, teachers, counselor, your school counselor, the proctors, the mental health counselor, myself, if I'm on campus, and a lot of other faces are always willing to help you, and we want to be there for you. So let's define what the word empathy means. And so for teachers, this one you will refer to the lesson plan 3 and the shoe handout for our students. Okay, so empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. So basically when we say that, you're putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So we all have different things going on. We have different traditions in our homes. So you're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, even though you may not know everything they've been going through. And then when we talk about sympathy, it's the feeling of pity and sadness for someone else's difficulties. So you may feel sorry for someone. So when someone's having a hard day, maybe you don't understand necessarily why they're having a hard day, but you can say, you know, I'm sorry that you're having a hard day, or I'm sorry that someone hurt your feelings. So you can be there for someone and understand that they're sad or they're dealing with something, even though you may not have known exactly what it is. And so with this one, if I walked a mile in your shoes, I would know. So with this activity, that's what you're going to be thinking about, is if I walked a mile in someone's shoes that I didn't know, I just saw them walking down the hall in class, or walking down the hall in recess, or out on the playground, or maybe I'm at a public library. So what would you know about that person? So right now you're going to go ahead and grab your shoe cutout and something to write with. And so with this activity, and teachers, you can pause as we go, imagine you are looking into a crowd. So I want you to write a story, 4 to 6 sentences, where you start with, if I walked a mile in your shoes, I would know that. And then you can go on with your story, and you can use your imagination. So if you see in the picture where I think they're at an airport, you can see a lot of different people. So if you picked one person and you walked in their shoes, what would you know? And go ahead and pause for this lesson, teacher. So now I want you guys to think about, when you look at this picture, think about what he could be feeling. So obviously he looks like he participated in the Easter egg hunt and he has tripped and all his eggs have fallen out. And so there's a lot of different things he could maybe be feeling. So I gave you some examples. So maybe he is hurt. Maybe he's sad because all his eggs fell out of his basket. Maybe he's embarrassed. He tripped and a bunch of people saw. He could be dealing with a lot of things. Or maybe he even thinks it's really funny. He fell. It is what it is. His eggs fell everywhere. So when you look at that picture, obviously you can think of a lot of different things someone's going through, but you really don't know what that person's going through because you're not that person. So when you look at this boy, looks like the other kid's like in his hair, giving him a noogie, I think it is. What do you think he could be feeling? I gave some examples. So maybe he's embarrassed. He's covering his eyes. Maybe he's sad. Maybe he's crying and he doesn't want someone to see. Maybe he feels lonely. He could be really angry that someone's doing this to him. And so there can be a lot of different things he could be feeling. But the reality is we don't know because we're not him. And the point with this too is when you're looking at people and we don't know what they're going through, I encourage you guys to help someone up after they've fallen, helping someone with a class assignment, being there to listen when someone looks sad. So these are all different ways you can show empathy and helping each other. And when you show empathy, not only does it help the other person, but I would hope that you feel good when you do it as well because you're helping someone. So I want you guys to think about kind of what we've talked about already, where we said, do we always know what someone is thinking? And the reality is we don't. So we never know what someone is going through. And so I always say, be kind, always, because you just don't know. And so when we think of, you know, if you've ever broken your arm or if you've ever broken your leg, or maybe you know someone who has, you see they have a cast on their arm or they have a cast on their leg, maybe they're in crutches. So you can see from the outside that they got hurt somehow. But if someone is maybe feeling angry inside or maybe feeling sad inside, you don't necessarily know because we don't get to see it on the outside. So that's why you always want to be mindful of that and remember that you don't always know. And you can be that person's friend. You can help them feel better. Even if they're angry or having a bad day, being kind can really make a difference. So thank you for watching this.
Okay, so we are now towards the end of our presentation for today, and we'll be opening things up for questions in a moment. I just wanted to review these crisis phone numbers and mental health resources that we do have. They're posted both on our district websites, and I think some of our school sites might have it as well. And we will also be emailing this out with a copy of the PDF of this presentation. We can't email the recording. It's too large to usually go through email, but it will be posted later on our district website. And our presentation also includes some resources and references that were used to put the presentation together. And I'm going to stop sharing screen so that we can now look at any questions that might be in the chat. I also will be sending out in the email evaluation of our presentation to get your feedback, as well as any ideas that you might have for future presentations or topics. So please ask any questions, any concerns, or any thoughts that you're having about our new program Aevidum for K-6.
Okay, so Viviana, there's a question. How are teachers infusing mental health activities as part of school curriculum?
Where do you write in the teacher? Is it the chat rooms that ask these questions?
Yeah, you can put it in the chat, or if you would like, you can go ahead and ask as well.
Okay.
So as far as in general, each teacher may incorporate some things for social emotional supports, but specifically, this is the curriculum that's going to be used to discuss like emotions, mental health, feelings, coping strategies. So anything above that, it might vary teachers. There are some teachers that might incorporate mindful breaks using Go Noodle, and other like books on feelings and things, but specifically a curriculum is this program.
Yeah, so I see where you were asking as part of the daily, weekly activities. So in addition, exactly what Viviana just shared, they could be doing other activities or lesson plans, but related to what we've seemed as appropriate for social emotional to address the suicide prevention law, the 6 lessons is what they'll be doing. And yes, thank you. Another person in the chat, thank you for the presentation. Knowing the materials age appropriate, I can imagine. I know myself and Miss Martinez are not parents, but even colleagues that have kids, you know, the word suicide prevention gets scary.
Mm-hmm. And really the concept of suicide prevention, all suicide prevention programs have like 3 parts, which is recognizing the signs that there's an issue or problem, how to cope with that issue or problem, and seeking help. So the program in and of itself has those 3 parts, where it just doesn't specifically address the word suicide, but it does have the 3 parts, which is necessary according to the law to utilize something that has mental health based. So the identification of concerns and emotions, recognizing how to cope with those issues and concerns, and seeking help and assistance from adults.
And then the question is, these classes start February and for the next 5 weeks.
It will vary again between sites. Each site will be, it's different, has different schedules and different needs. So some school sites might do like, might do it all in a row, a week to week, whereas another site might choose to do a couple 1 month and a couple next month. We have until May to complete all the 6 lessons.
And yeah, thank you for the questions in the chat. What role does the school counselor play in these lessons is the question.
And that could vary site to site because the school counselor plays many roles and wears many hats at each different site. And that's a conversation between their administrator and them, and to see what it is that they might need. The lessons were created in order for teachers to implement independently. The program in and of itself is actually a teacher-led program. We chose to pre-record it because of all the distance learning that teachers are already doing, so that would make it easier for them to implement. So the school counselor isn't necessarily required in any way to actually run the session, do the lesson. If a school determined that maybe the school counselor wanted to, you know, send out like little notes or things to support the lessons, they may or may not do that, but it could again vary site to site.
Yes, and then 2 questions related to the law. So what is the name of the law again? And it's AB 1767. And then this one, Viviana, is why was this law really implemented with kids being out of school and not having social contact with other kids? Do they play a role on this subject at the same time as a parent? Yeah.
When the law passed, it was actually pre-pandemic. The law passed in before the pandemic. So I would think it was September of 2019. So well before we knew that there was something coming. So the anticipation of the pandemic was not there. And so that's when the law was added. And the previous laws actually happened, I think I want to say late 2017, and because late 2016, because we implemented 17-18, and then things have been added since. So it seems like this particular law kind of has had like a revision almost every year since it was implemented back in 2016.
And I think obviously coming from a mental health background and being aware of the statistics and knowing the risks and the ages that are being affected, I can imagine as a parent with elementary kids, it seems like, oh my gosh, why are we talking about this so young? But unfortunately, there have been children that have been very young that have taken their lives. And when we were looking at the programs, we also attended a lot of information with suicidologists who are studying suicide. And unfortunately, there were children that were like age 9 that were experiencing it. And like Miss Martinez said, we both have had students on our campuses as early as 5, and being able to really actively share how they would do it and all those things as well. So it wasn't even just, I'm mad today. We've had some pretty serious ones. And so I would imagine as a parent, it's really scary. But coming from a mental health perspective, we see the statistics, and we would want you guys to know, to be prepared and do anything you can to be an early intervention for your kids. And then it says, so at any point there will not be any mentions about someone taking their own life. Yes, there's no mention of suicide in our presentations. For the elementary now, when we talk about 7th and 8th grade, it is mentioned. And obviously we are doing that to break that stigma of not being scared to talk about it. But with our K through 6, there's no mention about any type of suicide or any depression, things like that. And thank you everyone for your questions. We will stay open a little bit longer for anyone to feel free to either unmute yourself if you have a question, or feel free to put it in the chat. Good question, Viviana. Is there any parent links per lesson to expand conversation with our kiddos at times, or parent resources?
There wasn't any specific parent links or lessons to expand the concepts. Being that the concepts are really identifying feelings, coping skills. So my suggestion would be, maybe once your teacher, if they communicate to you when they're studying the lessons, and maybe just doing those check-in conversations with like, what did you learn today? And if your child's like, oh, we did like this like lesson on feelings, then that would be a time to have just a natural conversation about, well, what did you think about it? What would you do if you were feeling really sad? What would you do to help yourself feel better? You saw our lesson 1 being like the 5 people. So who are your 5 people that you would turn to, and making sure they have 2 people that would identify as like their same age, as because that also tells us, like, if they're not able to identify somebody in their age range, that's a kid basically, that would be a support, that could mean that they're needing maybe some social support, maybe incorporating them into some activities to be able to meet people. Sometimes the classes are right now doing like Zoom lunch groups and things like that.
And I can say, we did show you 2 lessons for each of the grades. And I know with the 3 to 6, the topics are, the first one you guys saw with the hand and being able to see who they have to support them. The second one is about emotions. Third and fourth is empathy and sympathy. The fifth one is complimenting each other. And then the sixth one is about goal setting. So those are the main topics for the 3 to 6. And then Vivian, if you don't, do you mind saying the K through 2?
It's pretty much the same thing,
Yeah.
except we only have, I think, one lesson on that empathy and perspective taking. But we do the compliments lesson, as well as identifying feelings and recognizing them in ourselves.
And if there's any questions after that you think about, feel free to email myself or Miss Martinez. We included our emails on the form, as well as you're able to locate us on the Central School District website too. We're happy to answer anything that may be a broad question or maybe more specific to your family or family friends. Happy to answer, but just keep in mind that we will try to get back to you as soon as possible, since we see kiddos throughout the day. So we just don't want anyone to ever feel like we're ignoring your guys' questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, then we appreciate your time today. And if you complete that survey that I sent out, we'll also be able to get ideas for any future presentations that you would find helpful, or any comments and ideas for this particular program.
Thank you for your time and thank you for joining with us.